So I appreciate your patience, but ready to get started tonight and go over Chipotle's rice recipes. So I was asking earlier in the last video if anybody has any particular questions on the rice recipes, go ahead and drop them in the chat because I really want to know as I'm going through this what you all want to see in terms of something explained, or if you have a question on it, or if you want to see something that I'm doing that you didn't get to see in the video, just let me know. It's a pretty straightforward recipe. Oh, and actually, one of the things I have to grab now that I don't have right with me is their bay leaves, which, is kind of, I think I had that in my rice video, but it's really key. We also have some white rice going, and today we're going to basically prep the brown rice. And then when the white rice gets done, we're going to go ahead and mix that around in the bowl. And really, it shouldn't be a long live video, but we'll go through it and then give a little bit of techniques for meal prep. I think too, I don't know if Gym Workouts is here again, but being able to make your rice last longer. And so when you reheat it, it's not so, how reheated Chipotle rice is, it's not so great. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some bay leaves. What's crazy about this is I have them all the way up and I'm short. So I'm going to have to get some tongs to grab them up here. But let me see here. All right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and work through this recipe with everyone. So the big thing that I think a lot of people miss out on is really washing your rice. At Chipotle, they would make us wash our rice until the water ran clear, which was, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, especially with brown rice. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then really basically we're going to talk about the difference in, how much water you need to use, and then the citrus juice that they use when they're, done cooking it. And then we'll go ahead and mince some cilantro and get it all ready together. So let's go over here. And this is kind of the most important thing that they do that I think a lot of people miss. So you might be asking, why do I have to rinse off my rice? And so the biggest thing is it'll clump up inside your cooker or in your pot, and you'll kind of get like a mushy, real dense rice that I don't think is, very good to taste. You could definitely do it without it, but personally, I like to wash my rice. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now in the sink. So basically, just get yourself like a pot like this. You can use the rice cooker that you're using to cook with. And so we're going to rinse it off, fill it up with a little bit of water like that, and then mix it around. And you're going to do it enough to where you kind of agitate it so you can get all the starch off of it. Really, the starch is what makes it super clumpy. We'll go ahead and add a little bit more. So I don't know if you all can see, but the water is pretty murky. So we're going to go ahead and just drain that out. Real simple. You could also just do this in a strainer and just agitate it until you notice that the water that you're adding inside the strainer has done the same thing. But if you really don't have a strainer, you don't need one. You can use just a bowl like this, real simple. So again, Chipotle uses long grain rice. So it's really important that you use long grain. If you prefer the short grain rices like California Gold Rose rice, I think it's Baton. I like that a lot for white rice. You can do that. But if you're trying to get it the most Chipotle-esque as possible, you're going to want to go for a long grain brown rice. All right. How we doing, buddy Nova? All right, let's put that in here. Okay, so let me do it one more time and just show you. All right, so I don't know if you all can see this right here, but the water is perfectly clear now. So realistically, we have washed this enough. Okay. All right, so let's take that over here. Okay. So another important step that I don't know if I put this in my video or not, but is going to be key to getting a really good cook on your rice is adding oil before you cook it and after. So Chipotle would always have us add a little bit of oil before we put the rice inside the rice cooker. I guess because when you cook the rice, it helps coat the outside of the rice in that oil, and you don't. It's preventing it from clumping up. That really is the ultimate goal, and then it adds flavor. So Chipotle uses a oil called rice bran oil, which I have yet to find at a grocery store. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of rice bran oil before. You can get it off Amazon. That's where I found it. And it's, less common, I would say. So something that I, like to use is avocado oil because it's a neutral flavored oil. You could also use vegetable or canola for this recipe. Buddy Nova, I'm well. Thanks for asking. How about yourself? I'm doing well. It's been a great past week. I've been doing a lot of work, and I was up in North Carolina helping my girlfriend's dad build a fence. So this past weekend was really busy, but I'm happy to be back here. Will basmati rice work well with this recipe? Yeah, so you could use basmati rice. I would say it would work well because it's a longer grain rice. It's not necessarily the most accurate in terms of Chipotle's recipe, but it would definitely work. It actually would work probably better than a short grain rice. So I would say, don't overcomplicate it too much. Any type of rice besides maybe, well, actually, even jasmine, it could work. The biggest thing, though, that you want to do is to ensure that you have the right oil or oil period, really. Adding a bay leaf and then, the citrus and then the cilantro, which we can add to the end. So really, we have our washed brown rice right here. Again, for those who are just joining, we have the white rice back there cooking so that when that's done, we can mix that up in the end. So let's first say that this was a pot and we're going to cook it, which I could cook it, but I don't want the stream to last forever while we're waiting on rice to cook. So for, I would say, 5 cups of uncooked rice or less, I would only add a bay leaf. In a big vat that Chipotle uses, because they have these massive rice cookers, they use, I would say, like 3 or 4 bay leaves from my memory. So, for the sake of our recipe, we're just going to use 1 bay leaf. That adds a lot of flavor that you wouldn't realize is in the rice. When I, cook the rice and I don't have it in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this like significantly tastes different. But yeah, so the next thing that we're going to add to it is the oil. So the other important step that I was talking about earlier, I'm going to go ahead and add a tablespoon now and mix that around. Okay, perfect. All right, so now that we have our pre-stuff prepped, we're going to go ahead and add water to this recipe. And buddy Nova, glad you're happy and keeping productive. Hey, I appreciate that. How's everything going for you in your past week here with everything? Excited to see you on again this week for the rice recipes. Let me grab some water. Again, anybody that would like any type of insight into this recipe or anything that I'm not explaining right now, go ahead and throw it in the comments. It's pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions on whether or not Chipotle does something specific, just let me know. Okay, so for brown rice, right now I have a cup of brown rice inside my pot. I like to do a 1 to 1.75 ratio for a rice cooker or for a stock pot. And what that means is for every cup of rice that's brown, you put in a cup and 3/4 of water. Brown rice uses a little bit more water than white rice, and white rice really doesn't need as much. So, go a little bit heavier on your water for your brown rice in order for it to really cook. Otherwise, it'll come out kind of grainy. There was a lot of times that I work at the store and we wouldn't put enough water in it. And then the brown rice would come out and would be super grainy and hard and basically had to dump it and start over again, which was not fun, especially during peak time when you're trying to scramble. And if you run out of rice, it is just really bad because rice takes a solid 45 minutes to an hour to cook, especially brown. So that was one thing that we would always try to not happen was never run out of rice at Chipotle. Buddy Nova, week's been great. Low stress and productive. Well, we love that. That's fantastic. Also, I wanted to say thank you for the Chipotle barbacoa recipe. Hey, I appreciate that. I've been making it off and on for the past couple of years or so. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Your family loves it, and many thanks. Well, you're very welcome. I really appreciate that. The barbacoa is probably like one of my favorite proteins at Chipotle. And it's, actually, if you make the recipe at home, which it sounds like you've been for years, your recipe is more fresh than Chipotle's because in Chipotle in the store, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know how they do it now, but when I was there, they would pre-shred it after it came into the store. So it would come in like par cooked in a bag. And then you would take it and you would have to pre-shred it cold after it's been par cooked and then put it in a pot and basically heat it up with everything that was, spices and sauce and everything that was, refrigerated. So by you making it at home, it's probably even better than how they make it at Chipotle. So that's fantastic. And I'm really happy to see you're able to get, use out of the recipe. That's my favorite thing is being able to help people out and make this cheaper at home. And it's probably better because a lot of the time you don't know what type of grill cook or prep you got going on at that Chipotle and how long it's been sitting in the pan. So that's the nice thing about this is you can control how fresh it's going to be and really all of it in terms of food safety. So I just need 3/4 more cup of water. We're going to add that to the bowl here. All right, so when you're done, it should be looking pretty covered, especially for brown rice. There's a lot of techniques that people will say, like if you don't want to measure water and you just want to be able to eye it, a lot of people will do a fingernail test or fingertip test. And basically they'll stick their finger into the pot with the water or the rice cooker pot. And if it covers your fingernail and goes to the indent of your finger, you're in a really good range to be able to come out with some decent rice. So if you don't want to have to worry about, measuring out your water, you can do that. So just for the purposes of this recipe, I would essentially put this on the stove and get it boiling, and then turn it on a simmer as soon as it starts boiling. Turn it on a simmer. Cover it with a lid, and then wait. And it's going to take about, good 20, 30 minutes for a cup. Anything more than that can take a lot longer. So that's why I always recommend using a rice cooker. The rice just got done, the white rice. So we're going to go ahead and grab that, get the brown rice out of the way, act like we cooked it. Perfect. All right, this is nice and hot, but this is our white rice that we cooked. Let's go ahead and get some oil in there. So I'm going to put in a tablespoon. All right. So let's see if I can get this at a better angle for everyone. Let me go ahead and put this into a big bowl. Just give me 1 second. Boom. All right. 1 second. All right. Let's see here. This is nice and hot. Always makes it difficult. Okay. So I don't know if everyone can kind of see that a little bit better, but here's a better angle of our cooked white rice. So I went ahead and stuck some oil in it. Don't forget to pull out your bay leaf that you were cooking it with. That's important too. There'd be a lot of times I'd leave a bay leaf in there. Buddy Nova. And I have not changed your original recipe one bit, and make it as you instruct, and it's perfect. And that's really cool. Thanks for the insight. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, the recipe that I made, I tried to get as close as possible to what people would be able to do at home and be able to do it efficiently too, which is why I use the crock pot. I just think it's these recipes, if people are going to actually do them at home, we want to know how it is the easy way, which is why I use the rice cooker, because that's so much easier than using a pot. Trust me. Anyways, so we're going to let this sit in the oil. That's another thing. I just pulled it out as soon as it was done, but letting it rest is really important. So something they'll tell you and they'll teach you is, as soon as the rice is done, add your oil. We added it earlier, but we need to add it again. So another tablespoon, mix it around, and then just cover the lid and let it rest. Okay. So that's really important so that it soaks up all the moisture. But for the sake of the video, I went ahead and just, took it all out. Okay. So next thing that we have to do, which should have been done earlier in Chipotle's time frame in terms of they prep their cilantro earlier in the day. That's actually something that I did as a grill cook. We would have to dice we would have to dice like 8 trays worth of cilantro. So I don't know if you see this, but this is just one bunch. So imagine a big, sheet pan of cilantro. I'd have to do 8 of those every morning while I was, setting up the grill. So definitely a lot of work. Okay. And I don't know if anybody was here last week, besides the few of you who have been in the chat, but my knife cutting skills are not fantastic. So please do not use this as a reference in how to cut. I'm working on my claw technique because, again, Chipotle has these cutting gloves that make it really easy to cut something because you don't have to cut yourself when you have chainmail in your hand. So I like to do, basically, I'll take it, bunch it up like this, get it real bunched up nice and tight. That's, really important. And then when you're going through it, go through it really slowly like this. And basically you're shaving it. You see how some of it's coming out? That's okay. We're going to rebunch it up. They would always teach us not to put the stems in. Not sure if people here like to put the stems in or not. I put a little bit in. I think it's okay. Let me throw this in here. All right. So now that we have that, let's mix this around again and do a quarter turn with it. So every time you kind of go through it, just do a little quarter turn and try to bunch it up as much as you can to go back through it. And just go through it real slowly. And you might be like, hey, I don't even know how to cut with a knife. I didn't honestly know until I worked at Chipotle, which is hilarious because I learned a lot of my basics from them. But basically, you kind of want to grip it like this. Almost like you're writing with a pencil, but you just, move that down. If you don't want to do that, I guess you can, grip it like a handle. And, that is kind of hard because you can't really rock the blade. So another thing that you can do, that I would do if I got tired of holding it like that, is you can come through it by putting your backhand over here, holding the blade in the front down, and then just running through it like this. So, go through any of the big spots and then take it and then do another quarter turn with it, which we're getting pretty close right now. So not sure if anybody knows that, but a little technique for you in case you want to make this a little bit faster. So, all right. After all the years of doing this and going through the sheet pans, you get pretty good at it. I wouldn't say I'm like some expert cutter, but I'm efficient enough to get through the cilantro. Okay. All right. So let's see here. I don't know if y'all can see this well or how well the quality is, but there's a little bit of some big pieces on here, but for the most part, it's pretty good. So we have our cilantro cut up. All right. So we have our white rice. We had about 1 cup that we added at the beginning, and this yielded about 2.5 cups. So you're probably wondering how much white rice to add to it. And I would say 1/2 cup to 3/4 a cup. And that might be a lot. Some people think cilantro tastes like soap. My old boss at Chipotle did. So if you're one of those people, but you still want a little bit, you can put less in. It's really up to you. So we're going to go ahead and put about 1/2 cup because I'm not huge on cilantro. So 1/2 cup. And I don't know if anybody of you noticed this, but when you walk into Chipotle, you will see them behind the grill doing this all the time, constantly making rice. And what they do is basically pull it out of their hot box and throw it in a bowl like what we're doing right now. And they'll mix it together. Okay, so we got our cilantro in there. Before I forget, we need to get salt. Okay. So you have cilantro, salt, and then citrus juice at the end. So we're on the salt portion. I would say put in for 2 cups of rice that are cooked, just a pinch of kosher salt. Chipotle uses kosher salt. So we added a pinch of kosher salt there. Next, we want to add citrus. Now, in my video, I used citrus juice that was from like a lemon squeeze bottle and a lime squeeze bottle. You can definitely use those. It's kind of the same thing. I'm just doing this today because it's kind of fun. And really, we don't want a lot because we're only making 2 cups here. So unless you want it super citrusy, you really don't need a lot. I think I had half a teaspoon each in my 2 cups recipe. And again, Chipotle has a deep third of cooked rice. In a deep third of cooked rice, they will add 1/4 a cup of citrus juice, which is a lot. And actually, it might be more. It's been a while since I've worked there, but I'm pretty sure it's 1/4 a cup. That's a lot of citrus juice. Okay, so we're going to do here. I can touch the food because I'm eating it. So we're going to go ahead and squeeze in a little bit less than my spoon here because I like it a little bit more citrusy. So that was lemon. And then here's your lime. Again, squeezing just a little bit less than a spoonful. Okay. So we have everything in here. And really the final step now is just to mix this all around. So really easy, nothing difficult. Well, this is my dog, Sophie, which I don't know if y'all have seen her in the other videos. She's awesome. Okay, so mixing this around, trying to get all the clumps out. Again, white rice, actually, you know what? White rice is the one that you have to wash a ton because there's so much starch with it. Brown rice was always the easier one, which was fantastic because you wouldn't have to wash it a lot. Okay. All right. So this is done. I don't know if you all can see this well, but that is Chipotle's white rice made fresh with fresh citrus. So there's a lot of information out there on, what type of citrus juice they use and what is that essentially. But if you look up citrus juice, a lot of the time it could be a 2-to-1 lemon to lime ratio. It could just be different types of limes. In Chipotle, it is a lemon and lime combo. And I'd like to say that it's a half and half based on, what I've tasted in the store and what I've experimented with in terms of doing it fresh or with the squeeze bottles. Again, you can do either or. Okay, fantastic. Now, I think somebody last week had a meal prep comment in terms of, I think it might have been salsa and making sure salsa lasts longer. Kind of the same thing with rice here. If you're going to be meal prepping, a bunch of rice with your, protein and whatnot, I would prep the cilantro on the side. And then after you warm up your, meal prep tub, if you have your cilantro in like a separate bin that you can take with you to work or at home, then you could sprinkle it in to that bowl, at a tablespoon at a time, depending on how much you have. And then you can mix that around in your bowl after you microwave it. Because again, microwave cilantro is not fantastic. And it can brown and not be so great. Hey, Love Pugs 05, how you doing this week? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give this the good old taste test, moment of truth right now. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'd say that's dead on. Doing good. That's great to hear, Love Bugs. I appreciate that you're doing well. We always like to hear that. We're just going through Chipotle's rice recipes this week. Another thing too, intuitively, if you taste something and you're like, hey, it needs a little bit more salt, go ahead and add more salt to it. I know, Buddy Nova, you were, dead on with the original recipe, doing it for years, and that's fantastic. I would say, if that's working for you, keep doing it. But if for some reason, some of the spices for, maybe the meat you get is a little different, or something's not as fresh, feel free to add more or less of what you like. That's something that, they teach us at Chipotle, and or any, cook or chef would teach you, is that you can add more or less of something in order to kind of get it to where you need it to be. Because cooking is intuitive more than it is just a recipe, believe it or not. It's crazy. But yeah, so that is Chipotle's white rice recipe and their brown rice. So big differences between the two. Brown rice uses more water, longer cook time. They're both long grain. You can use whatever you'd like, but long grain will get you the most accurate. Oh, something else. White rice has less cilantro than brown. Brown has a little bit more in the recipe. So that is something to note too. And the brown rice, I think, has a nuttier flavor. So maybe that's why they use a little bit more in the recipe. Not sure. So Buddy Nova, wow, I'm learning a lot from you, man. I really appreciate you. Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone that has been able to join today on the live and kind of chat through things. I think it's fun to be able to connect with everyone that has similar interest in cooking, and be able to share any, tips or tricks that I have or you have. I think it's fantastic to be able to kind of do this together. I think that was my dog. Tap out, great content. We need the black beans recipe. Yes. Okay. So the black beans recipe, tap out. Let's do it next week. We could do the beans next week. So with this Chipotle, series, I'm trying to add, small steps. And then one of these weeks, we could do 2 nights, or we could just do 1 night. We could do a whole bowl, or we could do tacos, what have you. I've seen so many people try to mimic, and people add onion, but I've never seen onion in the Chipotle one. And whatever recipe I try, it never tastes the same. Well, that's a great question. So let me share something with everybody. So the beans, I think we talked about this last week. Somebody said the beans come in a bag, and the bag at the store, right? So I found on the UK's Chipotle website ingredients for everything. And this is more than just saying, oh, we have, peppers in our recipe, which the Chipotle website kind of says that. They actually give you specifics as to what is in each recipe, like with the beans. The problem, though, is the UK, I think, has different access to certain things, because they don't list, and I don't see where, but they never listed Chipotle peppers, which I thought was super interesting, that they don't have that over there in their recipes. But we can take that and apply it to the black bean recipe, which, generally speaking, I'm not sure if onions is in that. And anything that anybody is mimicking, they probably are putting too much, and or they're not putting the right type of onion, and they're probably not doing it while the black beans are going from dry to hydrated. And I think that's kind of the key thing with that. So if you add like raw onion to cooking black beans, that's going to taste a lot different than if you're hydrating black beans, but also in a spice mixture. Because again, they come in hydrated. We don't do it in the store. Buddy Nova, I'll try adjusting things as needed. Yes. Anything you need, feel free to adjust it. But if it's working for you, fantastic. Just don't be afraid to adjust stuff. That's all I got to say. That's what they would teach us in the store. George, how's it going, George? Yes, black beans. Yeah, we will definitely do that next week. And what I can do is I can walk through, if anybody is super courageous and wants to make black beans from scratch, meaning you don't have them canned or bagged, you have them dry, and you can add, water to it and throw it in the oven or on the stove and essentially hydrate them. We can do it from that level, or do kind of a mix of what we're doing now and have some ready and then be able to hydrate those. So yeah, the dry beans, we can do that, or we can do a combo of both. I'll leave it up to everyone else. But yeah, so that is the rice recipe. Do I have any more ideas for the next couple of weeks of recipes people would like to see? And while we're waiting on that, I need to go ahead and cook my brown rice because I'm not going to waste this rice. So just give me 1 second. Okay. All right. George, I usually hydrate dry beans in a bowl overnight before. Fantastic. That's even easier. Any passive method that you can do to get them hydrated, totally encourage, which is why I'm using a rice cooker on my brown rice. Okay. So I'm going to throw that in the rice cooker for me for later. After rinsing like how you did the rice today. Let's see here. Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what you have to do. Buddy Nova, yes, sir. May we see how you make any of Chipotle's variety of salsas, please? Of course. Yes. So we can do, let's do beans next week. And then the following week, let's do 2 salsas. So we'll do 2 and 2. We can do their mild and corn one time because it's similar ingredients. And then the next time we can do the hot and the medium salsa because we'll be using the oven to essentially braise some tomatoes at 550, which is always fun. Okay. Anybody have any more questions on the rice recipe or have any questions on the techniques? Pretty straightforward. It's a pretty boring recipe, but I think a lot of people are shocked when they find out how simple Chipotle's recipes are. And yeah, sometimes the best things are the simple ones. Love Pugs 5. I never had their corn. How does it taste? So I would say it's like a sweet taste. It's a really good corn. It comes in frozen and then they thaw it out and it is very good. It actually can be a little bit spicy because there's diced jalapenos in the corn. depending on how sensitive you are to, spice, you can get a little bit of that jalapeno and be like hurting. But other than that, it's a really fresh, good salsa. Let's see here. Throw Binskin. I'm learning about GABA brown rice. I think I'm going to get a cuckoo rice cooker that has that option. That's a fantastic idea. Just got on here and don't know if GABA had been discussed already. In terms of GABA, I would need to Google that. Can you spell that out for us? Or is GABA the whole thing, or is it abbreviated? Because I know you put that in caps. I want to make sure you're understanding. But since you're joining now, Chipotle's rice recipe, the two types of rice they use, brown and white, are long grain. So they're long grain, and they like to get them from local farms and source, them locally across the nation. So the type of rice you might get in California may be completely different than the type you're eating in Virginia. It just depends on where they, source it from. But it's going to be long grain. So Buddy Nova, sweet. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to knocking out those recipes with you. And yeah, the simple recipe is the best. So since you brought that up, Buddy Nova, which ones do you want to see in 2 weeks? Do you want to see the corn and the mild salsa first? Or do you want to see the medium and hot salsa, which is the red salsa that they have? Love Pugs 5. I'll have to try it. Yes, you will. It is good. And again, we were talking about this earlier, but you can modify any of these recipes. If you're like, I hate spice, you can take the jalapeno and the poblano pepper out of it. How about the queso sauce from Don Meehan? Yeah, so the queso recipe we can definitely do. If we want to do the queso recipe in a couple of weeks, I can easily do that. Or we can do 2 lives in 2 weeks. Let me know in the comments of what you'd like to see. I'm thinking that the queso recipe is a good one for an entire time, because I can do that on a burner and do it with a pot as opposed to the crock pot. I did the crock pot video because I think it's easier. It's a no fail. You just turn a switch, put it on low, and it cooks it. So just let me know. Love Pugs, corn and mild. Okay, so you'd like to see the corn and mild next week. Whichever is more convenient for you, I don't mind. Let's do the corn and mild, just because we have 2 votes for that. That one's an easy one because while we prep the cilantro, the jalapenos, and the red onion, that will be added to both. So it's kind of hard to beat when you can do all of that at once. Love Pugs 5. I love the queso. Yes, do the queso and corn. Okay, so queso for sure. We're going to do that alone in a couple of weeks, and then we'll do the corn and mild salsa in 2 weeks, and then next week we're doing the beans. Cosborn, can you build the location build itself, interior/exterior both? I'm not sure what you mean. Could you elaborate on what that means? And Throw Binskin, GABA brown rice. I need to look this up because now I'm kind of intrigued as to what that means. Let's see here. GABA. Has anybody heard of GABA brown rice? Germinated brown rice, GBR. Oh, compounds like GABA. Beneficial bioactive compounds. Yeah, I've never heard of this before. But I would love to take a look into researching that. That's really cool. I'm going to have to check that out. Okay. Love Pugs 5. Why did they change their queso from a yellow to a more yellowish white queso? That's a really interesting thing. I think it's because people complained about the queso recipe. I don't know if you remember, but it was after I left. By the way, their queso recipe, they released it online themselves. Kind of funny. like a recipe for it themselves. I think it's because they got so much pushback. They're like, you finally got queso, because I don't know if you knew this, but they would always tell us queso ruins the flavor of all the other food. We don't want it. And everyone was like, well, we would love it because Qdoba has it. You should have it. It's fantastic. But they never wanted to do it. I think that was a Steve L's thing. But when he left the company, they added queso. Let's be honest, it sucked. Well, in my opinion, it wasn't very good. And then they came out with a more white type queso base. So they probably changed up the cheese. I could look into that. That's really interesting. No, I loved the yellow one. I asked if I could buy it in a huge bag. That's hilarious. That's actually a good question. How they would, honestly, I'm pretty sure the queso could be remade with the yellow to switch up the ratio of cheese that they have to it. And then, you could make it at home pretty easily. I don't know. Love Pugs 5. I don't know if you have in my channel, in the description, I have an email. If you want to email me, I can email you a recipe for the yellow and we can try it out on the side. I don't know if that sounds good to you. Buddy Nova, have you made a Chipotle burrito video yet? You probably have, but that would be cool to see too, as a live, or if you have time. It would be cool to see how you put it all together. The Chris way. Ooh. Buddy Nova, I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't think I have any burrito videos. And you know what? It is really interesting to see how they roll them. It's not easy. We can definitely do that. I've been asked a lot, hey, what type of tortillas do they use at Chipotle for the burritos? So we could do something with that. Again, I know I've never made a burrito from scratch, but we could always try. I've made tacos, or the taco shells from corn from scratch. That's pretty easy. Oh, how sweet. Let me get my laptop. Yeah. If you want to go ahead and email me, and then I'll have your email, and then I can email you back and send you what I think is the recipe for the yellow queso. I can definitely do that. That's fantastic. All right. Well, anybody have any more questions? If not, we will conclude this live session. And again, if anybody has any questions, they can comment on the live later on, and or reach out to me on any of my videos and comment on them, or shoot me an email in my channel description. I'm going to go check on this brown rice. If anybody has any more comments, I'll come back to you in just a second. Okay, my brown rice is boiling and looking really good. Okay, well, if that's it from everybody, I appreciate everyone joining this week. And again, if any questions, please reach out. And I will see everybody next week. Have a good one.